The Marlins drop the final game of the series against the Mets and lose the series 3-1, 4-6 on the road trip. Are the Marlins now done? Have we finally got the white flag up for this 2022 season? I think it's still too early, but we're going to dig into all of the news and action from that Mets. A career day. There's no other way to call it. Encarnacion. That is coming up on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Marlins, your daily Marlins podcast. And don't forget to follow me, of course, on Twitter at Miami Marlins _UK. Don't forget to hit subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel. There are 5 episodes a week. Yep, 5 episodes covering the 2022 Marlins. And this is the Monday edition. Welcome to the Monday edition. This is coming at you live immediately after the final pitch was thrown on the Monday game, a UK-friendly Monday, which doesn't happen that often. And in reality, happened that often again the rest of the year. It was a terrible game, and the Marlins were handsomely defeated by the Mets, 6-0. It felt very, very 2021 Marlins. Picked off runners, no runners, catching issues too, wild pitches, pass balls, I don't know, however you want to score it. It was just a real sloppy performance. Rogers, oh boy, it could have got out of hand really early with Trevor in that first inning. Bases juiced, no outs, just gave up 1 run. Then he settled in, actually, which was nice to see. But the Marlins, they dropped this final game. They could have split. They ended up taking the loss, losing the series. And if you recall, the Marlins obviously also lost the series in Philly, but took the series in Houston. So a 3 ends. The Marlins win 1, lose 2 of the series, and 4-6 in the 10 games. Overall, they played some good teams. We got to call it out. I mean, the Astros, the Phils, and the Mets, that is 3 tough teams. So 4-6 isn't the worst outcome ever by any stretch. And there were some bright spots. There were some bright spots for sure. I mean, we're going to get into some of them. But reminder, guys, that this episode, it is brought to you by BetOnline. And betonline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And as well, thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. Hopefully, you've just finished the game. You're now going to sit back and listen to a no guest either. So just with me today, solo pod on a Monday. I have to hold my hands up too. I did off slightly, had a little doze around the 6th inning. So I did miss some of the action. Dylan Flora was pitching. Next thing I woke up and Tommy Nance was pitching and things went sideways again. So that kind of summed it up. But listen, today's game, Trevor Rogers, let's start there. It was, again, another real struggle in that first inning. Bases reduced, no outs. He gets out of it with just 1 run. Trevor then settles in. And if I'm honest, it's actually probably the best we've seen Trevor, or that I can remember anyway, particularly in recent weeks. Like, it actually looked like Trevor once he got going. Like, clearly the first inning. But it was a little bit misleading, actually, because there was error, I think, to Birdie at third base. There was a broken bat single. It was one of those where, just the bases juiced. And then to get out of it, I thought he was pitching well. Rod Allen in the booth was calling it as well, like kind of calling a good game for him, looking for that fastball high, get that fastball control going, get the changeup going. Those two, the perfect pairing last year. The fastball change combo was electric. And just the fastball's been getting demolished and the changeup's just not been drawing any swings and misses. So that's been the problem for Trevor, but it looked a lot better today. What was the final line for him today? Apologies, I've literally just hit record on this straight after the game. So it ended up 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 walks, and 7 Ks. 7 Ks. His ERA sitting on the year at 583. So listen, it's still not Trevor Rogers. He's now 3-6 on the year, takes the L. Dylan Floro came in. The Bass Man equally came in. And then Tommy Nance got blown up a little bit towards the back end. But on the offensive side, clearly yesterday we had a big day. Jerar Encarnacion with his debut, a salami on his debut, an outfield assist and a stolen bag. What a debut. Piece it all together. That is stunning. He gets to start again today. And unfortunately, it was not quite as good today. So Jerar ends up with at bats 5 men left on base. No Ks, so he wasn't striking out. Ground out some hard hit balls too. But the Marlins in general, they've struggled against lefty pitching all year for whatever reason, because a lot of their more productive players, other than Jazz, perhaps, are righty hitters. I mean, obviously Soler, Avi added, Aguilar, Miggy Rose, obviously great against lefties, but as a team, the Marlins have really struggled. And I saw a tweet just before I went live from Aram, tip the cap to the old host of Locked On Marlins, but just how bad the Marlins offense is against lefties, and it's the worst in the league by some distance, I believe. And that kind of rings true. But today they got runners. They got runners on base. That wasn't a problem, particularly early in the game. They multiple runners on. Peterson wasn't that sharp either, or didn't feel that sharp. Was pitching, behind in the count a lot early on. But it was just this like constant issue all year, being able to score runners, not being able to get runners in scoring position or drive them in. I mean, they ended up being shut out today, so they didn't get any runners in. No runs, UK friendly, pain for me. I'm not sure how many people watching the game. It didn't feel like there was that many. I mean, clearly it's a work time in the US, so I guess the majority skipped this one. But yeah, just the runners in scoring position piece, the driving the runners in. It's been a common theme. Dan Greenlee called it out on Swings and Misses recently. Overall, the numbers say this offense is okay, middle of the pack, but it really isn't middle of the pack, sorry, in terms of getting these runners in. And it's hard to put your finger on why that is. And I mean, I don't have the answers. I absolutely don't, and I'd love to understand more. So if you're listening and you've been able to understand what's going on, or you've played the game, like what changes? Did anything change when there's runners on? From a hitting perspective, I mean, it shouldn't really, but it's just the Marlins just can't get the key hits and the key spots to get some runs. In this game, it's 6-0. It feels like the Mets handled the Marlins, and to an extent they did. However, it was close early doors. It really was. And as well, was sloppy today. It was like from a defensive standpoint, they weren't on. There was an error on Birdie. There was, I think, a throwing error from Bass. Should have rolled a double play, ends up throwing it and spiking it in front of Miggy. It wasn't good. It just felt like, and again, Stallings wasn't too sharp behind the dish either. I mean, I think a couple of them, or all of them, were scored wild pitches. So he didn't get a pass ball, but didn't feel clean behind the dish. And equally in the infield too, it didn't feel clean. Obviously, we had a big error early in the season in the series with the Mets in center field. De La Cruz straight to him and just drops one. That was in the Pablo start when the Mets took a 3-0 lead and kind of set the tone for the series. Probably this game is summed up when we all look back. What's going to be the main highlight that's going to be showed by the majority of the broadcast outlets? And Brian De La Cruz in the outfield popping a fan balloon. That's probably going to be the main highlight for the Marlins. So, it was a tough Monday, tough game, a tough way to start the week. But there were some other bright spots. But I also want to kind of dig into the roster moves we've seen this week. I didn't record an episode on Friday. I was hanging on to see because it felt like the lineup was going to be, come out so late. It felt like things were brewing. We didn't quite know what the news was going to be, and the Marlins ended up scrambling around. So, we'll dig into those roster moves and what it means, because it meant over the weekend we got to see Lewin Diaz and Jerar Encarnacion, I've already mentioned. So let's dig into what it means for those boys, what the future may hold. But reminder, guys, that this episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. And listen, I've mentioned it now for multiple weeks. I've been using their product every day. They sent me a goodie box of their AG1 product. And listen, guys, what is it? It's simple. Clear. You put one scoop of AG1 into water, shake it up in the morning. 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All of the things. Sounds absolutely stunning, no doubt about it. So that's all you have to do. You basically just got to put a scoop in water, shake it all about, drink it. It is a glowing green color. It does what it's in, athletic greens. So to make it easy though, Athletic Greens, they're going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional. All right, guys, as I mentioned, we were clamoring for it. Lewin Diaz is up. This time he actually gets some starts. If you recall, last time the Marlins made him drive 4 or 5 hours, have no sleep, and have literally a cup of coffee. Didn't even get any playing time, and then sent him back to AAA. But this time, Jesus Aguilar and Sanchez both land on the COVID IL. Not quite clear on the timeline. Did hear from felt like the guys were going to be able to fly back with the team. That points to a promising situation there from those players' perspectives. Anyway, likely they may rejoin the roster, perhaps even tomorrow against the Rockies that are coming to town. But it did give an opportunity for us to get a look at Lewin again at the big leagues. And I mean, really, with Lewin, what do we see? The glove is just absolutely sensational. One of the main other storylines, the fact that his glove didn't even make it to New York. So he basically ends up, having 2 games and 2 starts, but he had no glove. They had to go and get him a new one from, I don't know, a local goods or whatever. And next thing is one of the Marlins coaches hitting ground balls with the glove to break it in, which was, pretty funny storyline yesterday, or the day before, sorry. But, Lewin, great with the glove. We know that. And the question we've got to work out here with Lewin very quickly, I think, is the bat going to play at the major league level? I truly believe it will. Like the times we've seen Lewin up, I'm impressed with him. The power is so easy, so easy. The glove is so nice, and it feels like a real plug and play guy for the Marlins. But they seem, clearly with the way the roster's constructed right now, there's a lack of willingness to give him playing time, and really it's going to need a trade or an injury to really clear the pathway for Lewin Diaz the rest of the way. And reminder though, the end of June, when the Marlins moved Corey Dickerson specifically to get Jesus Sanchez playing time in the outfield to get a full look at him. Lewin Diaz, we're in a similar spot here. We need to know. I think we got to look at Jesus Sanchez. Well, extended playing time, and we all came away. He's a legitimate major league outfielder, and clearly this year has had to shunt into center for job too. The Marlins need to do something similar right now with Lewin. I mean, we got to kind of look at this, pretty objectively right now. The Marlins are 7 games under 500. They're 29-36. They've got a plus 13 run differential. So listen, they've been unlucky. They've lost a lot of 1-run games. The bullpen hasn't been good. Etc. Etc. The rotation's decimated pretty much. I mean, the back end of it's decimated. So you're leaning on Braxton, Dan the Man Castano, etc. And it shouldn't be overlooked how well Dan Castano particularly pitched against the Phils. Because Brax was okay in his last outing, but was good in his first one. So but it feels unlikely the Marlins are going to go on a real run right now. Plus, they've got obviously tricky run of it now too. They've obviously got the Rockies coming to town, and the Rockies on the road is an enticing option. So decent chance they could win this series, 3-game series. But then the Mets then come. We've just seen the Mets. They're a good ball club this year. They are. And then the Marlins then continue that, head on the road to go and play in St. Louis, which will be tough. 3 games there. Then, another breather early July, 3 games on the road in Washington. So, there's 4 games there on the road there in one. 2 series coming up. The Marlins should be expecting to win. 2 series that they're probably not going to be expected to win. With that being said, it's improbable to see them going on a major run. So we're in that point of the season now, end of June. They're looking out of it. And there's Jesus Aguilar on expiring deal coming off the COVID IL, but nevertheless, big clubhouse guy. It's got to be getting into time now where you look to try and deal Aguilar. The problem the Marlins face, though, actually, is that first base is looking strong. Real strong this year across the NL and Major League Baseball. Like, first base doesn't seem to be a major weakness. The Marlins are feeling that too. Clearly, they've got Aguilar, they've got Coop, they've got Lewin. Jerar Encarnacion can play some first base. There's a lot of first base options out there, and that means that they're limited in maybe who will be looking to buy and someone like Jesus Aguilar. But even if a top level team, maybe like a Giants or someone like that thinks, okay, we'll use him as a bench bat or a platoon guy. We'll wait and see on that. And the other interesting wrinkle today knocking around is the Dodgers have lost Mookie Betts for, let's say, a prolonged period. They're in the market now for an outfielder, a right-handed outfielder by all accounts. And, listen, the Marlins, they absolutely have a few of them that are available. Everyone's jumping to the conclusion or the hope, perhaps, that Avi Garcia could solve the Dodgers' problem in the outfield. I'm not convinced they'll be able to make that one happen. I mean, even if the Marlins just said, "Listen, you can have him for free," would the Dodgers do that and take the 50 mil owed or the 45 million owed or whatever it is now? I'm still not convinced the Dodgers would go down that path. Jorge Soler could be an interesting option for them. Got to be honest. I mean, Soler is more enticing. The contract is better. It's shorter. And he's playing better than Avi Garcia, clearly. The Avi Garcia situation, we've said it multiple times on this podcast, on Twitter, on everyone's podcast. It's just not been good. It hasn't. It's been, worse than average. It's been terrible from Avi Garcia in the main. I just don't understand really what's happened there. It's just been, the grounders to third over and over and over again has not been good at all from Avi. And I don't know. I just really don't understand what's happened. It has kind of improved slightly. Nevertheless, though, this is at the heart of the Marlins' problems. The fact that Avi Garcia, their big offseason thus far, could the Marlins flip him? I don't know. I'm not convinced. No, they should explore that, and I think they will. I do think that Soler's contract was always tradable if he level. Soler to the Dodgers, why not? Soler to the Braves, clearly there's a fit there too as well. We've kind of solved a little bit their outfield conundrum now with Harris coming up, taking over at center field, and Duvall shifting back to a corner. I think that. So we'll wait and see. The Marlins at the deadline, they may be buyers too. They obviously had the news knocking around that Ramon Laureano was of interest to the Marlins. And listen, the Marlins should look to buy now. They should. They'd look to try and move the rental guys, as they can, or maybe clear some space. But they should look to buy if they can for the future, like they did Allen's situation. Something similar. Obviously, if the Pirates think, okay, Brian Reynolds has got to go, but I don't know. I mean, where do the Marlins go from this? Are we just getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here? Maybe that's the other thing to think of, because the offense isn't that bad. It isn't. And maybe we're kind of a little bit quick to try and just sell everyone and trade everyone and start again. I mean, the offense hasn't been that bad. I think, listen, if you replace with just anyone that's an average, been an average hitter this year, and that's the only move he did. And clearly they've had some injuries recently, so it's been tough. But if you swapped out Avi, had a league average hitter, and you added a closer, then I think still this Marlins team is in the mix. I mean, we've just seen it. They've gone head to head with all these, good clubs in the last, week and a half, and they've held their own. They'll always hold their own, particularly when Sandy's going. I mean, we'll talk about Sandy real shortly now in a few minutes after the next ad. But the Marlins are always in games. The run differential says so. The amount of one-run games they're losing says so as well. They're maybe one or two hitters away from being, uh, a good team, dare I say it. So going back to it, I think they absolutely need to pull the trigger on Aguilar. I just can't see the Marlins extending Aguilar. I think he's going to go to free agency. I just don't see the fit there. The way that they've kind of clashed over the financials and the arbitration piece, it's obvious to me that the Marlins are unwilling to commit to Aguilar, and so he should be moved. I think pretty soon. I think that would be my recommendation to Kim Ang. Not that she would be listening to this pod and taking any of my recommendations, but look to move Aggie. Tough as it may sound, but move him, get Lewin up there, get him playing majority of the days. Jerar Encarnacion equally is an interesting one. I think Jesus Sanchez when he's back. The question then is, if Jesus is back, well, let's have a longer look at Jerar and send Brian De La Cruz back down to AAA. Obviously, he was optioned earlier in the year. He didn't even make the opening day roster. So the Marlins were comfortable not having, a backup option in center field. Bertie's around at the moment, so Bertie could flip into center as well if needed, or Luke Williams probably could, or whatever. But, I'd like to see a run for Jerar. I would like to see what he's got. He's been scorching hot in this year. The majority of the year in the minors, and so it feels right that you give him a run. I mean, a salami, stolen bag. 0 for 4 day today. I'm interested to see if he gets a run against the Rockies. I mean, the Rockies pitching has been pretty average thus far as well, so there should be opportunities for the Marlins, and I think Jerar Encarnacion should be given an opportunity. Let's see what he's got. He's only got one option year left, so they can option him next year in 23, but after that, in 24, it's then to, if you don't want to carry, he's either traded, DFA'd, or, I guess they're the two options. So, I think the Marlins need to find out what they've got there. He's been on the 40 man for a while, hasn't really been given any opportunities. He's hot now. Let's see what he's got. With that being said, guys, reminder that this episode is also brought to you by Bet Online. Yes, sir, Bet Online. And Bet Online is one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Hopefully you had some good bets down on the US Open golf over the weekend. Okay, English winner Matt Fitzpatrick, of course. So head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online where the game starts. Speaking of starts and starters, Sandy Alcantara, baby. Another 8-inning display from Sandy Alcantara. I went off on one last week talking about Sandy, saying he's the best pitcher in baseball. He is. He's absolutely cemented it. I think Sandy, there's just no one like him in Major League Baseball right now. The length, the sheer length out of Sandy is it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. I just love the fact that don't even blink when Sandy's in the 90 pitch range now. It's like, stay out there, big lad. Stay out there. And I'm loving what I'm seeing from Sandy. It's just filth. And there was some, listen, the changeup is just electric right now. Sandy is electric. He's the best pitcher in Major League Baseball right now, consistently. And there's no one like him. He's a unicorn, Sandy Alcantara, right now, because no one has the length and the stuff that Sandy does about him. He's been absolutely stunning. Pablo Lopez was back as well. He obviously skipped, so Pablo got the start in game 1 against the Mets. And boy, it was a bit of an adventure there for Pablo, obviously going down 3-0 in the first inning, the bomb to Lindor. Lindor had a real nice series, by the way. Looked good at short, and obviously he was a threat. He's having a nice year. Pete Alonso got the salami as well in game 1, so the Mets came out roaring in that first game. But Pablo Lopez good to see him back. That was the main thing. The game got away from the Marlins. It was what it was. But Pablo said, no effects to the wrist. The wrist is fine. I think it was, and Donnie said post game that he felt like Pablo was in his head a little bit thinking about the wrist, which is, to be expected. Doesn't want to, he's got a history with injuries clearly. So, it'll be on his mind. But I think, it was good for him to get through the amount of pitches he did, albeit, the salami later on, hurt the ERA, obviously for Big Pete. It was good to see him back. Overall, it was a tough series for the Mets. They were handled pretty easily, obviously, in game one. The Sunday Sandy start was obviously wonderful. Yanza, and it was just a perfect game and for a few different reasons. But you then get into the the 1-run game, giving up a couple of runs early. Diaz, came in with a save, tried his best to blow it. In some ways, the Marlins get 1 run back, but Marlins did nothing on the Saturday game. They were pretty disappointing. Today was shut out, but 7 hits, 2 errors. Again, it wasn't a snoozer of a game. The Marlins were in it, but just couldn't capitalize. So you've kind of seen the whole plethora of the Marlins here, blown up on one day, snoozer offense on the Saturday, Jerar Encarnacion coupled with a Sandy Alcantara start on the Sunday and get the W. And then it was felt like a 2021 getaway day special with errors, couldn't convert chances, and then in the end getting blown up for the Marlins. So that's going to wrap us up for today's episode on Monday of Locked On Marlins, guys. Thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It was just me, solo pod with me, Peter Pratt, but I'll be back tomorrow previewing the Rockies series. So we'll get some insight and analysis on these Rockies again. Looking forward to that one. Dan the Man Castano gets the ball tomorrow. So really intrigued to see how Dan can follow up his last start against the Phils, which again, of course, was a painful one with the Marlins being walked off. But nevertheless, excited to see what Castano in game one. So we'll be back tomorrow previewing. Relax, enjoy your rest of your evening. Back on Tuesday.